Hey everyone, so I just thought I'd use this opportunity to talk a little bit about an issue that affects many people, or at least many vegans, and it's the issue of how to deal with friends and family who aren't going to go vegan, or who you've tried to talk about veganism and simply won't listen, or kind of don't understand why you've made the choice to be vegan. And I think this is an issue that affects so many vegans, and it affects so many young people. And one of the most difficult messages that I receive from people that I always find quite hard to respond to is teenagers who live at home and they say, I want to go vegan, I've connected with the ethics of veganism, but my family won't let me. Or I get a message from people who say, I've gone vegan, but it's really difficult for me when I go out and I socialise with my friends because none of them are vegan, and they mock my veganism and they kind of make me feel very uncomfortable. And this isn't an easy subject at all, and it is very difficult. And I think the first thing to kind of try and do is to help them understand why you've gone vegan. So maybe send them documentaries that inspired you to go vegan. So maybe Cowspiracy, What the Health, Earthlings, Land of Hope and Glory, whatever it is. Try and encourage them to watch the same documentaries, so at least they get the same insight that you had that initially inspired you to go vegan. And actually, even if you can't get them to watch full-length documentaries, maybe just try YouTube videos. And I know on YouTube there's a 15-minute cut of Cowspiracy and a 15-minute cut of Forks Over Knives. So maybe they don't want to watch the whole documentary, or you struggle to get them to watch the whole documentary, try sending them those smaller versions. It might seem more manageable for them. And if they don't do that, then try YouTube videos, and there's some really great resources that are only about 4, 5, 6 minutes long. You could also try sending them articles or resources, anything really that just inspired you or kind of got you curious about veganism in the first place. Try sending that to them and see if they'll watch it. If they won't, then it becomes a lot more difficult. I think it's really frustrating because, as a friend or a family, a loved one basically, you would think that these people that you kind of, have in your daily life would want to understand why you've made such a big decision. And it seems like such a small thing to ask them to watch something that's, maybe only 10 minutes long, or maybe even only 90 minutes long. And if they refuse to do that, it can be really frustrating because you just think that they'd want to take an active interest in understanding why you've made that decision to change. And it's something that's always confused me because my family aren't vegan. My friends, are all vegan now, but my family still aren't vegan. And I bought my mum, my stepdad, Forks Over Knives nearly 2 years ago to watch, to kind of give them a little bit more information about why I've made that choice. And I thought the health would be a really good way of kind of making it seem accessible to them and not seem too daunting. But nearly 2 years later, they've still not watched it, and I can't quite get my head around why they haven't in 2 years been able to put aside 90 minutes just to try and understand my point of view. And it just seems so strange to me that, these people who I lived with for 18 years wouldn't be interested in understanding why I've made such a fundamental change in my life. And I think one of the issues with parents and why they probably are less receptive to change is because when we go vegan, we're almost saying to our parents that the way they've raised us for however long is wrong and immoral, and we don't agree with it. And we're kind of indirectly saying that they've been bad parents. Now, we obviously don't think that they've been bad parents, and we understand that our parents have done what they thought was best for us. And they think that, feeding us meat, dairy and eggs is kind of what we needed, to be healthy and to grow up and, and be strong and kind of not have any deficiencies or problems. And it's not necessarily their fault that they've done that. But when we turn around and say we've gone vegan because of ethical reasons or moral reasons, we're saying to them that what you've done, the way you've raised this, is inherently wrong and inherently immoral. And I think that's quite hard to digest, understandably, for a parent. And maybe giving time to watch 90 minutes, or even just kind of having an open mind and amusing the idea of why their child has gone vegan might be almost an acceptance or an acknowledgement that what they've done is wrong, and they don't want to do that. And I can understand that, even though it's really frustrating. With the friends, it's a little bit more difficult because obviously, again, it's that indirect response of saying they're doing something wrong or doing something immoral. And I think there's just kind of more of an environment with friends where there's, especially if you're kind of the only one who's made the change and you're in a group, but there's kind of more of that group mentality where it's you open yourself up to be mocked or judged or kind of have the mick taken out of you. But most importantly, in any of these situations, whether it's friends or family, the education is so key because you'll always get asked lots of questions and you'll always have them trying to debunk or rebuke why you're vegan or the philosophies behind veganism. So if you're struggling to kind of, advocate for veganism effectively, then research as much as you possibly can, so that when you're having that, family dinner, or when you're out having that family meal around at your friend's house or whatever, and the questions and the comments are said, you have a logical and rational response to them that makes veganism seem reasonable. I think one of the challenges that we have as vegans is to make it seem normal and not make it seem like an extreme. And the best way to do that is just making it seem entirely rational. So do research, do as much as you possibly can to learn all the different arguments against veganism, and learn about all the different responses to those arguments, so that when you're in those conversations, even though they might make you uncomfortable, you can use them as an opportunity to maybe educate and discuss veganism. I strongly believe that a conversation and discussion is the strongest tool that we have as vegans in presenting our ideas or presenting the philosophy of veganism. So use those opportunities to your advantage. Maybe in the past, those environments where you've had discussions have led to arguments and have led to making you feel worse. So maybe reevaluate why they've turned into arguments. Is it because you've felt overly defensive, and understandably so? And if that is the case, what can you do in future to maybe reduce that defensiveness? And I think the key way of doing that is making sure you have the knowledge, because one of the easiest things to do when someone says something we don't understand is just to get angry and frustrated about it. So if you can have a rational response, you can eliminate that frustration, that anger, because if someone says something like food chain, circle of life, we're omnivores, you've got a succinct response already in your mind that you can just utilize at the appropriate opportunity. And now, unfortunately, I've not always had the success. I think the fact that I didn't go vegan when I was at home has worked to my advantage, because I've avoided those situations, but it also means that I've never really had that kind of sit down conversation, or those moments where the conversations could have occurred, because I don't visit home so often. I think one of the reasons I don't visit home is because I don't want to be around animal products. I don't want to be around people eating them. I don't want to be around these uncomfortable situations that will make me feel uneasy. And that's maybe selfish of me, because it would be a good opportunity to discuss veganism. But at the same time, it is challenging. And I think that's one of the reasons I find it so challenging is, for instance, early June this year, my mum came to London to visit me. We spent the day together, and we had a fantastic day. We ate in an all-vegan restaurant, and my mum loved the food. She thought it was delicious, and it was delicious. It was fantastic food, and I knew that she'd like it. Anyway, we were sat down on a bench in a park, and we were chatting, and one of the things that we chatting about was veganism. My mum was saying she wasn't sure what she was going to eat while she was in London with me. So basically, my stepdad had packed her a ham sandwich, and basically she said to me, "Oh, your stepdad said that I should get it out and eat it in front of you." And I thought, that really upset me, and understandably so. Now, this is a family member who, I spent the majority of my life with, saying to my mum that she should get out a ham sandwich and eat it in front of me because he knows that would upset me. And and that is really difficult to process, because these are the people you're supposed to maybe have the best connection with, and who's supposed to be the most understanding in your life. And yet in this situation, they're the people that are kind of like actively trying to upset me and actively mock my views and my values. And that's a really hard thing to process. And I think it kind of summarized quite perfectly why I just can't go home. Because if that's the sort of thing that he'll say to me when he's not even there, or that he would like my mum to do to me when he's not there, imagine if I did go home. Imagine if I was in his house, surrounded by his animal products, and surrounded by a man who has the mindset that he should be able to mock my veganism. How would I possibly be able to cope with that? And how would, it is challenging. And I'm fortunate in the sense that I don't have to ever put myself in that situation. But it breaks my heart when I read, messages from people, teenagers, people at home who can't leave, who don't have the option to go somewhere else and be independent currently. And they're in a similar situation where maybe one of their family members is mocking them, or doing something that goes beyond mocking and is just disrespectful and insulting, and eating an animal product purposefully in front of them. That's not just mocking them. That is a very aggressive act. But what we've got to remember, and it's so important to remember this, is that these reactions are a defense mechanism. And it's a defense mechanism because subconsciously they know that, eating animals and killing animals is unnecessary and is immoral. And by us living that lifestyle and being vegan, now I've been vegan for 2.5 years and I've had no health problems. In fact, I feel better than ever. I've got more energy than ever. That is sending a clear message to them that what they're doing is unnecessary. And then when we're causing unnecessary harm to others, it can never be morally justified. So my stepdad knows this, and that's a defense mechanism to kind of that subconscious kind of feeling that he's getting from me being vegan. And he has type 2 diabetes. He's been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which is one of the reasons why I bought forks over knives. And it just shows adamant people are, and how stuck in their ways people are, and how defiant people are in their beliefs and in their ways of life. And one of the big issues with the family, I think, is that, our parents are older than we are, and it means that they've had longer to kind of have that conditioning and have that indoctrination, and it's probably therefore harder for them to maybe get over it. Now, this isn't really a great argument, because there are so many people in their 80s even who are going vegan and feeling the benefits of going vegan. So it's not really a justifiable argument, but there is something to be said about the fact that a lot of our parents will have gone through a longer period of being conditioned, and as such they feel so much more attached to those values. And I think it's really scary to maybe be in your 50s or 60s or 70s or however old you are, and to turn around and think, maybe I've been doing something for this long that isn't right. And then there comes the whole kind of feeling guilty, but also being angry that you've been lied to. And I think kind of opening that kind of, those blinders a little bit and kind of seeing the alternative, way of life is very scary for our parents. And that's probably one of the reasons why they get defensive. But it is important to understand these arguments that occur with our friends and family are done so out of a defense mechanism. And that's so it reinforces again why it's so important for us to just be rational and logical and calm, because the calmer we are in our responses, the more kind of erratic they appear, and they'll be able to self-reflect on that, and they'll be able to understand that. And even though in that moment you being calm and providing logical responses may just make them even more angry and make them more frustrated, in the long run that's the most productive thing to do, because when that conversation ends and you both go about your days, it will play on their mind a lot, and the more it plays in their mind, the more they will start to think about it and analyze it and digest what you said. And over a period of time, I promise you that will bring about change. I say that I hear these these really upsetting stories, but I also hear these really uplifting stories where I get messages from people who said, look, my friends and my family were adamant they'd never go vegan. I used to have so many arguments with my mum or my dad or my brother or my sister, whoever, and I have so many arguments with them, but over time they started to understand, they started to listen, and now they're vegan. And that's a message I get a lot as well, and I think that just adds hope to me and hope to anyone else who's in my position, that the longer we are vegan and the more we talk about it, the more progress we'll make. And progress is inevitable if we continue using our voices and speaking up on behalf of the animals. Suffering from hardships and difficulties in your friendship dynamic, your family dynamic, remember you are not alone, and you have a huge community who is willing to support you and will help you as much as they possibly can. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I've tried to make it a little bit more informal. So if you enjoyed this kind of informal sit down chat, then let me know in the comments below, but also give this video a thumbs up. And I think it's really important now, if you have any concerns and you're in a situation I've described, you're having problems with friends or family, then drop a comment below, and let's use this comment section now to kind of create a kind of community where we can kind of chat to one another and we can help each other out. And I think it's really important that we do look out for one another and we offer each other advice. So if you have any problems, then drop a comment down below, and I implore people who are in a similar situation to respond and create a dialogue where we can kind of help one another out and provide guidance and advice. And I hope that this video has been insightful and maybe provided some relatable thoughts that maybe you felt isolated with, and I want you to know that you aren't alone. So thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.